A tow takes about 10 minutes. One hook, one chain, one truck pulling away. On paper, this should be one of the simplest, cheapest services you could possibly sell. There's no inventory, no storefront, barely any equipment beyond the truck itself. Instead, predatory towing complaints are rising across the country. State attorneys general are actively suing tow operators by name, and in one Dallas case, a tow that started over a parking dispute ended with a resident dead and a $13 million settlement. If it's just a hook in a truck, why does this industry keep ending up in courtrooms? Here's what's actually happening. It looks like a hook attached to your bumper by someone doing their job. It is actually the exact moment a bill starts running that you have almost no way to stop once the hook has already touched your car. Before the mechanism, the detail that explains almost everything else in this video. In roughly 2 out of every 3 states, it is completely legal for a property owner or apartment manager to receive a kickback, a direct payment, every time they call a tow company to remove a car from their lot. Only about a third of states ban this outright, which means, in most of the country, the person deciding your car needs to go isn't just enforcing a parking rule. They may be getting paid personally per car every time they make that call. One tenant advocate summed up the pattern about her own complex simply. It's interesting, she said, how a lot of cars get towed on Friday afternoons, right before a weekend, right when a tow lot storage fees have the most days to accumulate before anyone can get down there to argue about it. Second detail, and this is where it stops being an inconvenience. In Des Moines, one towing company's sweeps of an apartment complex parking lot got bad enough that children started warning adults when they saw the truck coming, and one tenant physically stood in front of the trucks to block them from entering. In New York, the state attorney general sued a towing company by name, alleging it falsified tow tickets, towed cars while owners were physically present, and patrolled streets looking for vehicles to tow without even being called by the property. In Oregon, the State Department of Justice sued a company after finding it accounted for roughly a quarter of every towing complaint the state received over 20 years, with tows disproportionately hitting a low-income, Latino, immigrant community, where a single tow cost residents nearly half a month's rent. And in Dallas, in December 2023, a man named James Smith went outside after being told his properly registered car was being towed from his own apartment complex. The lawsuit alleges that under Texas law and Dallas ordinance, the tow was legally required to stop the moment he identified himself as the owner. It didn't. He was killed. His family's case against the tow operator and a group of connected towing companies settled for $13 million. None of this means every tow is predatory. It means that when the incentive is volume instead of violation, the industry's worst actors have room to operate for years before anyone stops them. And the family in Dallas is proof of exactly how far that room can go. So here's how the actual money moves once that hook is on your car. A standard non-consensual tow, meaning nobody called for a wrecker, a property, or the police did on your behalf, typically runs somewhere between $100 and $250 just to release the vehicle. That's before storage. Impound lots commonly charge anywhere from $40 to over $100 a day to hold your car, and that meter starts running the moment the truck reaches the lot, whether you show up in an hour or a week. Some lots have been documented charging separate cash release fees on top of the storage bill. $150 paid on the spot, in cash, before they'll even open the gate. None of these numbers require you to have done anything wrong. They only require the hook to have touched your bumper. This is where the kickback detail from the top actually pays off. When a property manager can legally be paid per tow, and a tow company can legally pay that kickback, the entire chain of decision-making shifts away from, was this car actually violating something, and toward, how many cars can we move this weekend? The driver isn't usually the one setting this policy, but he's the one executing it, sweeping a lot at 2 a.m. with a flashlight, and the company that dispatched him is the one collecting on both ends. The release fee from you, and often a placement fee or kickback arrangement with the property that called him in the first place. It's the same structural shape we've seen in other topics on this channel. 2 paying customers, and the person standing in the parking lot arguing about their car isn't the one the business is actually built around. And here's the part that turns an expensive inconvenience into something much worse. Storage fees don't pause for anybody. If you can't afford the release fee immediately, or you're out of town, or you simply don't have the cash that day, the daily storage charge keeps compounding until, in enough cases, the accumulated bill exceeds what the car itself is worth, at which point many state laws allow the lot to place a lien on the vehicle and sell it to cover the debt. This isn't a hypothetical edge case. It reached the Washington State Supreme Court in a case involving a homeless man living in his truck, working as a janitor, parked in an unused lot for longer than the posted limit. His vehicle, and with it his tools, his sleeping bag, virtually everything he owned, was towed and put toward auction before the state's highest court ultimately ruled that people living in their vehicles can't have them towed and sold this way. The ruling protected him. It didn't undo the 3 weeks he'd already spent without a place to work from or sleep in. Quick one before we keep going. Tell me what you actually got towed for, the full number, start to finish. Not just the sticker price on the invoice, the release fee, the storage days, any cash-only surprise at the counter. I want the city, the total, and whether you genuinely think the tow was legitimate or not. I have a feeling this comment section is going to make me angrier than the research did. One more piece of the mechanism, and it's less about any single company and more about why this keeps happening at all. Towing in the United States isn't regulated at the federal level. It's a patchwork of state and city rules that vary enormously in how much protection they actually offer. Some cities, like Detroit and Memphis, have recently passed new ordinances specifically to curb predatory towing. Some states still have no kickback ban at all. That means your protection against a 2 a.m. sweep of your apartment lot has almost nothing to do with how carefully you parked, and almost everything to do with which zip code you happen to park in. Back to the question from the top. Why does a 10-minute job keep ending up in courtrooms? Because the hook was never really checking whether you did something wrong. It attaches because somewhere behind it, someone gets paid the moment it does. The lot collecting the release fee, the property collecting the kickback, the storage clock starting before you've even noticed your car is gone. The violation was never required. Only the hook was. Zoom out, and this stops being a story about a few bad tow companies and starts looking like a gap in how the whole system is built. Advocacy groups have flagged predatory towing as a rising complaint category nationally, and the pattern keeps repeating in the same shape. Low-income residents, immigrant communities, people already living close to the edge financially, getting hit hardest by a business model that only works if enough of its targets can't afford to fight back. Lawmakers in a handful of states are actively pushing new protections right now, precisely because the current patchwork has let cases like Dallas, Portland, and Des Moines run for years before anyone with real authority stepped in. To be fair to the industry, though, this isn't the whole picture, and it would be wrong to end there. Somebody genuinely has to move a car blocking a fire lane, a driveway, an accident scene, and the people doing that job, the drivers themselves, are taking on real, serious physical risk to do it. Towing is measured by the CDC as one of the most dangerous professions in the country, with an occupational fatality rate roughly 15 times higher than the average across all other private industries combined. On average, close to one tow operator is struck and killed on the roadside every single week in the United States. Statistically, a tow truck driver is more likely to be killed doing this job than to ever be struck by lightning. The predatory sweep of an apartment lot at 2 a.m. and the driver risking his life on the shoulder of a highway at that same hour are, in a real sense, two completely different industries wearing the same uniform. The policy that incentivizes volume over violation is the problem. The person driving the truck, more often than not, is just the one absorbing all the risk on both ends of it. So if you're the one standing next to your car watching a hook go on, here's how you actually protect yourself. 1. Photograph everything immediately, your car in its parking spot, any posted signage, the time before the truck leaves the lot if you can get there in time. That documentation is exactly what several of these lawsuits were built on. 2. Know that in most states, if you physically arrive and identify yourself as the owner before the vehicle is fully hooked and secured, the operator is often legally required to stop. So showing up fast matters more than almost anything else you can do. 3. If you get hit with a cash-only release fee or a storage number that feels engineered to be unaffordable, contact your state attorney general's Consumer Protection Office before you pay, Not after. Several of the cases in this video started with exactly one person filing exactly the kind of complaint. So the next time you walk out to an empty parking spot where your car used to be, remember what actually put it there. It probably wasn't a rule you broke. It was a hook that was worth more to somebody the moment it touched your bumper than the 10 minutes it took to attach ever let on. If this changed how you'll look at that sign in your apartment parking lot, a like and a subscribe genuinely helps this channel grow. And if you want to see the same trick playing out somewhere else entirely, the money and business playlist on this channel is a good place to look.